Can you all hear me? Look, good afternoon all. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for the C&I and C&D Waste presentations. My name's Jim Hennessy. I'm the Market Development and Waste Flow Manager for Veolia, New South Wales. We've got four 20-minute presentations, very diverse presentations this afternoon. It's the last session, obviously, before we finish for the day. A lot of information has been given to all today, so just one more session, I guess, before we can go relax and do a bit of networking. So we'll kick off with Kathy Junta's presentation, Recipe for Success in Supporting Businesses to Reduce Food Waste. So just a bit of background on Kathy. Kathy Junta brings almost 30 years of experience in the environment sector, spanning positions for non-for-profits, regional and state government. She is a respected leader and accomplished practitioner across policy, programs and strategy. Kathy is currently Director of Major Projects at the New South Wales EPA, with responsibility for monitoring implementation of the Waste and Sustainable Materials Strategy and delivering there's a number of things to deliver. So Kathy, I'll pass over to you. We'll leave the questions for the end of each presentation.
Okay. Hi everyone. Thanks very much for coming to this presentation. I will put my timer on. So as Jim said, I'm here to talk about the implementation of the FOGO mandates for businesses, because as has been mentioned a few times this morning, particularly in Gail's session, we need to put a lot more focus into the C&I sector so that we can really tackle this circular economy and pushing into achieving our resource recovery rates and, I guess circular economy, but also emissions reduction, which is the exciting thing about food waste, is that we get to tackle both things. I will start though, of course, with have to make that noise. With an acknowledgement of country, and I hope that you are all here to hear Uncle Richard this morning. What a beautiful voice and what a great language. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're all here meeting today, to acknowledge the elders past and present and all of the connections that they have to earth and air and water, and hope that in all of the work that we do that we can help to continue to follow in their footsteps and to take stewardship for this fabulous country that we are very fortunate to live in. You'll have seen graphs similar to this from Joe Pickin this morning. This is New South Wales data only, provided by the fabulous Anne Prince. For New South Wales, we're producing now in the order of around 23 million tonne per annum. The C&I component of that is around 5 million tonne per annum, and the C&I sector has a resource recovery rate in New South Wales of 51%, and that has basically flatlined since about 2018-19. Now that doesn't mean that we haven't been recycling more and more C&I waste every year. It just means that we're only recycling to make up the gap, because we are also increasing the amount of C&I waste that we produce every year. So the resource recovery rate stays the same. We're not moving the dial on that front. Well, I'm glad I didn't point that in the right way, because I don't want to move yet. So I guess in looking at the composition of C&I waste, which is what we commissioned Anne Prince to do back in 2023, was to do a really comprehensive audit of what is in the C&I waste stream so that we understand the problem that we're trying to address. The data was then made available in an interactive dashboard on our website. I encourage all of you to go and have a look at it. It's a great way to spend an afternoon. But what it does tell is a very clear picture here that organics is the number one target for us when we're looking to tackle the C&I waste stream. So organics is around 25% of everything that the C&I sector is sending to landfill. So it's an obvious first place to go. Not that we haven't been working on all of these streams for many years. And food waste is 45% of that organics. So very clearly food waste is a really big target and somewhere where we want to go first. Not only that, but also of all of the industry sectors that are sending material to landfill in C&I, food waste or organic waste is the largest component for pretty much all of the sectors, with the exception of healthcare and social assistance. So with those two exceptions, pretty much all of the industry sectors, organics is their number one material stream. So definitely worth a look. The C&I mandates, which I won't go into too much detail on because my colleague Zach will be talking at length about it in his presentation. But essentially, we're going to target the sectors that are producing the most food waste first, and they are the ones who are being targeted through the mandates. So the retail, hospitality and institutions. And within each of those sectors, we're targeting the biggest generators of food waste first. So really trying to be quite targeted in the way that we're doing this. Very quickly, because as I said, Zach will go through this in much greater detail and much more sensibly than me. Essentially, in 2026, if a business that's in one of those target sectors is having six 660-litre bins of general waste removed per week, they are captured by the C&I FOGO mandates. By 2028, it's down to 3. If they have 3 660s by 2028 of general waste, they're captured, and by 2030, 1 660-litre bin. So you can see that there's a gradual build-up, which will help the industry and the collections to catch up there. I guess one thing that I'm keen to mention there is just the institutions, so hospitals and schools and so on. So the audit did tell us that it's about 100% of food waste from institutions is going to landfill. So where we do have some early movers in other areas like the supermarkets and so on, institutions are a much harder nut to crack. So we do have our challenge set out for us. But the stage transition helps us to go to the most highly motivated first. And so we really want to work with those innovators and early adopters in this because they are the ones that will help us to create off-the-shelf solutions for the rest of their sector as we move into those, but also allow time for collection services and processing infrastructure to build up so that they have time to get ready for it. It looks to, I guess, what we're really looking to do here with both these and the household mandates is to create a much more broad social norm. So we need to be creating new social norms within each of those target industry sectors. So this is how we do it for supermarkets, for retailers, this is how we do it. And we're all doing it now, not just the early, Woolworths and Coles. There's no longer going to be a free rider issue there because all of the supermarkets of that size will have to do it. So it really supports those early innovators and early movers. But more broadly amongst the whole community, I have to do this at home, but also the supermarket I go to has to do this, the school that my kids go to has to do this. We're all doing this and we're all doing it by 2030. And so it is part of a much broader social norming exercise. And if you think about social change, what we're trying to achieve here over the next 5 years is a significant challenge, let's just say that. I'll just go backwards one there. Okay, so no shortage of challenges here, and I won't talk to all of the challenges because there's not enough time in 20 minutes. But we have, with the C&I sector, whereas with householders, basically the behaviours that they have to adopt are the same for all households. But for a supermarket versus a hospital, the behaviours that the staff, the patients, the employees, the managers have to adopt are all very, very different. So we have a real challenge in weeding out what are the behaviours that we're trying to move people to and getting very specific for each of those industry sectors so that they are comfortable and confident to do this. We're starting from quite a low base. So we have at the moment, through our work with WACRA, we know that there are only, just under 3,000 businesses with an organics collection services, and we're looking to ramp that up to about 25,000 businesses by 2030. So starting from quite a low base, we've got a long way to go. Awareness of the mandates and of what to do is also very, very low. So we have an awareness challenge there. And that has directed the EPA actions. So to tackle that awareness, we are building at the moment an awareness campaign, which we're looking to launch in September. We're investing $1 million in this campaign, and it will run through until the 1st of July next year to let people know that they will be captured by these mandates and what to do. We're continuing to invest in bin trim rebates, so businesses can get a rebate of up to $50,000 for small-scale equipment that they might need to help them do that source separation at back of house in their business. And we've been running those rebates now for about 10 years, and we'll continue to do that. We have the Business Food Waste Partnership grants, which I'll show you some examples of soon. Lots and lots of pilots and resources that are coming out of that so that we can get to that individual sector-based behaviours that we're trying to move to, and continuing to do all of the social research that we do, the research into compostable packaging, continuing to do all of that research and publish all of that as we go on the EPA website so that we can all build all of our knowledge in the sector, as well as building knowledge out there with those that we're looking to work with. Okay, so first to the awareness campaign. As I said, $1 million investment. The focus initially will of course be on the really big generators and letting them know that this is coming. So the specific objectives of this campaign so that they know what they're required to do, they know when the requirements are going to start, and they know where to go to get information on how to do it. So a lot to get across in a campaign. The campaign will be multifaceted. We'll use lots of channels. So there will be paid advertising, there will be social media, videos and tiles, there will be radio, called assets as well for called community businesses, radio and digital. So a full suite of resources and collateral there is being created. We have already done the first set of focus group testing. So we did initially some broad social research to find out where people were at across all of those different sectors. We used that to inform the first set of creatives, and then we focus group tested that with business owners, business managers and people who are working in those sectors to see how it resonated and what advice we could get from them on how to make the campaign work. And this is some of the key findings from that. So businesses very, very keen to know, does this apply to me? So critically important that this campaign gets the message across about who is captured. Interestingly, environmental benefits were the #1 motivator. So they really interested in the environmental benefits, and they wanted us to downplay any cost savings or anything like that. First of all, because they're a bit wary about whether they will save money, which is fair enough. But yeah, that's really not what their main focus was. Interestingly, it was about the environmental benefits. They want some detail on what this is all about, so we need to actually show people doing things in the ads and so on. So things like this guy here has real food in the bin, so there were some other concepts that had sort of more cartoony type things. They don't want any of that. This has got to be real. They want real people as well. They loved this guy. He was their favourite. Interestingly, another thing that's quite different to households is the language. So with households, we know that scraps or food scraps, that's what people want to talk about, is scraps. That's what makes sense to them in the kitchen. At work, they want to talk food waste. So the language that we need to use with businesses is food waste, not scraps. So it's quite different to households. The testing, as I said, we will be running through what we've learned in those focus groups. We'll be retesting that in June, July, doing some more tweaks, and then looking to kick the campaign off in September this year. Okay, funding support. So we have been providing for the last couple of years now, flipping to the story, funding support. So we've been running, there's a $4 million grant program called Business Food Partnerships. And so what we're doing there is working with councils, groups of councils, peak industry groups, and others who have a direct connection or network with the businesses that we're trying to capture so that they can work with us and with them to help them be aware that the requirements are coming and know what to do. The grants are up to $200,000 each, and the projects can be up to 2 years long. We've already awarded $3.6 million of that. We're hoping to run another round. There are 23 projects already in play, and you can have a look at the website to see what all of those projects are. But I will show you some now, because the stories are the most interesting thing in any presentation. So, ORG Group got a grant from us. If any of you are ever looking for a pick-me-up, you should follow ORG on LinkedIn. They're always posting these really positive, personal stories of working with their customers, working with cleaners at shopping centres and so on. Really great stuff. I encourage you to follow them on LinkedIn. So ORG Group are working with their existing customers and broadening that customer base to train them in how to better do this, to increase the amount of food that they're getting into those bins, but also reduce contamination, and that's going really well. Better business partnerships, working with their 3 councils there, North Sydney, Willoughby and Ku-ring-gai. Again, they're working with a few hundred businesses who will be captured, early childhood, aged care, hospitality and some large offices. And they are also looking at doing awareness raising and recruiting people to move to collection services. The institutions, the ones that I said are the tough nut to crack. Fantastically, we've got Department of Education on board with one of these grant projects. They are producing a huge suite of resources that they are making publicly available as they go. And these resources are for students, for teachers, for cleaning staff at the schools. They're piloting this work across 10 schools statewide, and they're looking to do a statewide rollout following the learnings from that pilot. And the Westmead and Randwick Children's Hospitals, also really, really hard one. They've got a lot of things that they need to consider there, a lot of complexity. They've got nutritional requirements for all of their patients. They are looking to see how they can roll this out in hospitals. So very keen to see how that goes, and then for those learnings to be shared more broadly amongst hospitals. In New South Wales TAFE, this one I love in particular because what the program is doing here, New South Wales TAFE are looking to invest in all of the people who are going into the hospitality sector at the time of their training before they start in the sector. And you'll know that this sector has a high turnover of staff, so really important to grab them early. And ACOR doing the same thing with the hotel sectors. And there's 23 projects in total, so loads and loads of really good stories that we'll be sharing as we go. In addition to the grant projects are a few pilots. So the shopping centre pilot, we've been learning a lot from that. Cleaners, critically important because they're the ones that the food retailers listen to and they're the ones that make this all happen. And the bakery sector, lots of money and environmental savings to be made. Don't waste your dough, really great guidelines there. I guess I'd like to end with a call to action on this. You know, this is a big, meaty challenge, but so worthwhile and a really great way for us to cut into that C&I waste stream. So I guess what I'm looking for from all of you is to help us when this campaign starts. Please boost the campaign through your own channels. Please use all of that collateral. It's all been tested. It's all going to work. But we want to know how that's going in your communities so that we can continue to build on all of that collateral. Please share the links to all of these resources. There's no point us creating this if it's not shared more broadly amongst those sectors. So please, as these resources are going up on our website, link to them from your own channels and peddle them out there. If there are additional resources that you can see a need for, please talk to us and let us know. We want to be part of helping to create those. Connections. We are making a lot of connections with champions in all of these sectors, and I know that all of you are too. It's really good for us to help connect those champions to each other so that they have a network of people, but also to just share those learnings and so on. So any events and things like that that you're putting on, let's talk and let's get those people talking to each other. And that's it for me. Thanks so much. I just wanted to end by saying that I'm just very excited to be cutting into the C&I waste stream and sharing all of this work with you. And I think that we'll have a good crack at trying to hit those targets, which everybody's telling us we won't meet. We'll give it a go. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm looking forward to the awareness campaign. Obviously, Earth Power falls under my group, So looking to that. So I'm not sure if we have any questions from the floor at all. No?
Great, thanks.
All right, again, thank you, Kathy. Next we have Ryan Collins from Planet Arc. Ryan is the Head of Impact and Research. Let me just grab... So Ryan, after nearly a decade working in the banking and finance industry, I'm glad you came across to waste. Ryan has drawn into a career of sustainability that saw him work in Sydney, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands and Fiji in diverse roles such as monitoring and valuation, threatened species and sustainable agriculture. With a background in psychology and environmental management, Ryan's role at Planet Arc since 2012 has focused on developing positive environmental behaviour change programs and research that helps individuals, businesses, government and schools transition to a circular economy. So Ryan's going to talk to business attitudes to R, strategies and ways to drive change. Thank you, Ryan.
Okay, the dreaded clicker. Thank you all for coming to this session. I'd like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the land on where we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. Our traditional custodians have been managing resources for thousands of years. So yeah, let's get into it. So today I'm going to talk to you about business attitudes, why we need to understand them when it comes to waste management and sustainability, some research that we're launching today. I'll go through the methodology, results and recommendations, and then talk a little bit about the new Recycling Near You website. Planet Arc, we've been around for just over 30 years. We're Australian not-for-profit, and our mission is to enable positive environmental actions for everyone by bringing people, businesses and governments, and really educators as well, together. And I challenge you to find a cuter photo than that with our National Tree Day ambassador. So, you've probably seen these stats now, but why do we need to understand business attitudes? Well, C&I Waste, and that's without core waste, is increasing. C&I resource recovery rate is decreasing. And it's important in terms of encouraging behaviour change to understand business attitudes. Because you get a sense of what their capability is, their opportunity, and their motivation. And that's part of a behavioural change theory, the COM-B model. And looking at the capability and opportunity, you investigate what their barriers are, and you can look at how you can address them. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the recommendations. Of course, we'd like to thank the New South Wales EPA, who've been a foundation sponsor of Planet Arc's business recycling program for, it must be over 10 years. The program began about 15 years ago and is being merged into Recycling Near You, but I'll talk a little bit about that afterwards. So we commissioned Pollinate, who are a research agency, to survey 255 Australian businesses. This was a reasonable representation of businesses in terms of location, size, and industry spread. And the people we spoke to, or Pollinate spoke to, 95% of them claimed to be responsible for waste management within their business. So, in terms of the top 10 materials disposed of in general waste, And just to note that these percentages refer to the proportion of businesses who reported this waste stream or disposing of this material. It's not about amounts or frequency of disposal. But at the top, you've got food scraps, leftover food, and coffee capsules and pods. We looked at the New South Wales EPA's C&I Waste audit to compare what they found compared to our results. 35% of C&I waste gets sent to landfill that is recyclable. And you'll see there that the major, as was shown in the previous presentation actually, organics is the major material, and that aligns with our findings as well. And again, that's an opportunity for education, and we can see that being taken up with the presentation before me. In terms of the top 10 materials recycled, again, it's a proportion of businesses that are doing this, not the amounts. We have advertising and material and envelopes at the top, 77% of all businesses. Aluminium with 74%, newspaper and magazines. Some of the insights that we can draw from these results, small businesses are more likely to recycle household recyclables. So potentially because there's a lot of work from home in that sector. If you look at the second from the bottom, soft plastics, this is potentially a concern. 64% of businesses say that they're recycling soft plastics. Now, whether this is contamination or if they're actually doing that, it'd be good to get a recycler to answer that question. But again, perhaps that's an education opportunity as well. So in terms of the higher order R strategies, I'll show you the top 2 materials for a couple of those R strategies, starting with reuse. So bricks and concrete and particle board, 35% of businesses said that they reuse those materials. In terms of reselling and donating, office furniture was on top with 42%, followed by clothes and textiles. And probably not surprising, in terms of repair, we've got computers at 27%. So some insights from these results. Those higher order waste management actions are being undertaken by business. However, much fewer than, say, recycling. About half, really, in terms of those other higher order R strategies. So again, an opportunity for education and investment. In terms of barriers to more sustainable disposable practices. So one of the barriers was a lack of awareness of more sustainable disposal options, and I think that's been shown across other research as well. Just to highlight that, there's a small business quote there from the survey about coffee pods saying that I'm not sure how to recycle them or if you can. Another barrier is that perceived lack of access to recycling services. And again, we've got a small business there talking about office furniture, that there are just no available options. Another barrier is time poor or lack of convenience, and other priorities. And we've got a medium business there, a quote about printer cartridges, that more sustainable disposal needs a lot of effort. And we also have perceived increased cost of recycling over landfill, and we've got a large business quote there on batteries saying it's expensive. I'll come back to the time poor. Got a story about that. Business with policies, procedures or strategies in place to reduce their environmental impact. Now this is quite high. All businesses, 74% say they have one of those policies, procedures or strategies. How they define that probably differs across the board, but you'll see a sliding scale from large down to medium and small in terms of whether they have those in place, which is not too surprising. In terms of what behaviours businesses have adopted to reduce their environmental impact, the top three there are installing energy efficient light globes, turning computers off at night, and recycling office paper. Now these are pretty simple actions really, potentially saving money as well. And then you'll see there that the small businesses are more commonly undertaking these actions. When we look at kind of the more complex actions, such as discussing better waste management and recycling practices at board and management level, having a sustainable procurement policy or strategy, or having a circular economy strategy, you'll see that larger businesses are more commonly using those strategies versus small. So with small businesses, a little story I have is that my father owned a fish shop in Gosford back when I was a kid. He used to get up at 6 a.m. And leave to pick up some fish from the local fish co-op. He'd come home, have a cuppa, take me to school, and then he'd drop the fish off at the shop, go park the truck, and then he'd put it all on display, and then he'd start work for the day at 9 o'clock. Of course, it'd go through to 5 o'clock, and then he has to pack it all up, take the takings, do some accountancy work, and then do it again the next day. Saturdays, he'd open the shop from 9 to 1 o'clock, and then on Sundays, his day off, he'd go to another fish co-op to get other seafood for the week, and then he'd drop it off at the shop. So there's not much time there for thinking about other things really, other than family and relaxing potentially. So it's something. It says that the solutions need to be convenient and easy. In terms of business implementation of circular R strategies, we've got the ladder of circularity on the right. Might be a bit hard to see, but the most impactful strategy is about refusing, followed by reducing. Recycling actually is number 9 on that hierarchy. And in terms of what businesses are implementing, we've got repair at the top, which is great to see. 76% say that they're repairing. 73%, sorry, are reusing, and 72% are recycling. Some insights from this is that, again, most businesses reportedly are implementing those higher circular strategies, but how widespread is that implementation is probably what needs to be investigated. In terms of motivators for businesses to reduce their environmental impact, now, just to keep you on your toes, we've switched it, so the highest number is down the bottom. So in terms of that, reducing energy consumption, that saves money, that's the biggest motivator across all businesses. My personal views on the environment, obviously that's a bigger factor for those smaller businesses, and we want to take the lead in addressing climate change, which kind of links in with that brand perception, public image, and even competitiveness being those key motivators. In terms of where businesses learn about waste management and recycling, it's a relatively even spread there from waste management and recycling websites, local government sources. We've also got government, state and federal government and their non-profits down there as well. So we can see that they source it from a wide range of areas. In terms of some specific resources and their usage, we've got the National Waste Policy at the top. And then we've got some Planet Arc resources, business recycling, which will be merging into Recycling Near You. And I guess the reason why potentially these are high numbers compared to the NGO results on the previous slide is that businesses may not be aware that they're run by NGOs. Okay, on to the recommendations. Education campaigns, providing information about existing solutions using behaviour change science. Effective campaigns need to use tested messaging and established behaviour change principles. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a sec. Programs that provide support to SMEs, addressing that SME shortfall in time. Research into R strategies and cost reductions, and showing that there is tangible evidence out there that those circular economy strategies are reducing costs where possible. And then strengthening of government policy regulation and focusing on those of greatest impact. So in terms of that education campaign, I won't go through all of this, pointing to helpful resources like Recycling Near You as an information source, but it's not all about information. You also need to motivate them, demonstrating that the solutions are easy and convenient, they have a competitive advantage, fear of missing out, and then what Kathy mentioned also, demonstrating positive social proof. The more people, the more businesses that are undertaking these actions, then the more proof you have. And then I'll just go down to the number 4, strengthening of government policy. Focusing on higher order R strategies. So refuse, reduce, and importantly, redesign, I think was mentioned in another presentation. And these are all linked to the barriers that have come out of the research, and there's a full list in the research report. So the new Recycling Near You. So currently, the Recycling Near You website gets around 1.8 million users every year. 86% of those users come from Google, so they'll land on a Recycling Near You page after searching on Google. In terms of business recycling, obviously a smaller audience. We get about 114,000 users per year, and around 46% of those users come via Google. So we see a bit of a gap, and one of the reasons why we're merging these two sites is that businesses are potentially finding Recycling Near You information when it's about household services, not C&I services. Hence, why we're merging. So this new website will offer recycling solutions for both households and businesses, and the first of its kind in Australia. That's what it's going to look like. There's a toggle between I'm recycling from home or work, and obviously lots of resources as well. For councils and recyclers, we've updated the back end, so the form is a bit more streamlined. So councils and recyclers can update their listings or register if you're not registered on there. One of the next projects, or one of the projects we're currently working on, is a recycling equipment catalogue, and that's with funding from the New South Wales EPA. So that'll be a new website launching shortly. So my call to action is to download the report. There's a nice summary that you can download if you don't want to read the 40 or 50 pages. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. That's certainly a lot of information. I'm looking forward to downloading, seeing the slides, so there's a lot of data there to go through. Not sure if there's any questions from the floor at all. No? I think you would have eaten a lot of fish too of an evening too when you were growing up.
I definitely did.
Thank you. All right, next we have Sarah Van Eck. That's how you pronounce it, Sarah? Yep, Resource Recovery Specialist from Cleanaway. I'm going to do Sarah's bio quickly. Sarah assists Australia's largest retailers to lift their landfill diversion performance. Sarah's formal education in sustainable business and logistics has bolstered by her 10 years experience in fast-moving consumer goods and plus 5 years experience in resource recovery. First-hand experience in operational roles in retail and supply chain allows her to engage in team members effectively during implementation, whilst her experience in corporate stakeholder engagement allows her to apply her passion for sustainability strategically. So Sarah's going to be talking to us about resource recovery, collaboration to recognise construction and demolition diversion efforts nationally. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Hi team, I'm excited that I get to talk about both topics, C&D and C&I. I am the meat in the sandwich. Thank you for the intro, Jim. So as Jim mentioned, I have a background in retail, so all of the solutions that I try and implement for my customers, I really try and ensure they land into operations effectively, because there's what works on paper and what works with boots on the ground, which I'm sure a lot of people in the room can appreciate. My customers are national retail customers, which really helps because that's what I used to do. I used to stack shelves and unpack trucks, so I have that operational experience. But they are also interested in meeting their sustainability goals. So they have corporate sustainability goals that they want to meet. They need to see the action turn into numbers on paper to get the results, to get us funding, to get us improved results for their customers as well. So even though I'm talking about construction waste today, I'm actually really talking about change management. I'm going to be talking about making data-driven decisions, about making processes that make the changes easier for our team members. I'm going to talk about engaging people, because really, without people, the change isn't really happening, right? Oh, I got it first time. So a little bit of background about my customer at a very high level. My customer is a national retailer. They have over 700 stores across 4 different brands. They have diversion targets that they want to meet. And their core waste is based around their business, which is retail. So it's primarily secondary packaging. It's cardboard, it's plastic, it's paper, it's really light stuff. What we were finding was we were doing all of this really hard work to try and improve recycling in stores. And anyone here who's tried national initiatives will know trying to create change across 700 stores with thousands of employees is a real pain. What we were finding was we were doing all of this work to create, implement new recycling streams into stores, to get incremental behaviour change, and then someone would order a bloody general waste skip for 2 tonnes and ruin an entire month's worth of performance for a store. And we were going, you know, what's going on? How is this happening? And not really understanding the root cause causing this impact. So when you talk about numbers and you have a store doing 200, 300 kilos of light materials coming out of a store, and then you have the store next to them doing 2 tonnes of concrete waste in the same week, you really have to stop and go, what are we focusing our energy on, and are we spending it on the right things? So that problem that we had of WTF guys who ordered this skip became the solution. We had to go, this skip of general waste that's blowing my diversion numbers in my corporate report is actually able to help us improve our diversion numbers. Because what we found was, in C&I, when someone orders a skip, we automatically assume that it's either product waste or it's packaging waste. And we didn't stop and realise, what are these guys ordering the skips for? And we realised that there was a lot of construction and demolition projects going on under the radar that we weren't being kept in the loop of. And because they're temporary projects, we weren't setting up the processes to get that material to the right destinations. These things were just happening behind the scenes. And as you can imagine, if you've got a really large customer, a really large organisation, some of this stuff flies under the radar. There's no way I'm across what's happening at 700 stores, but the data told a different story, and that helped us to make the right decisions and focus on the right things. So as I'm assuming a lot of people in this room know, C&D waste is highly recoverable waste. We're talking about soil, timber, metal, concrete, really great stuff, really bulky stuff, really heavy stuff. And what we wanted to do was leverage established solutions to improve diversion rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. Anyone who works in retail at the moment, it's already been mentioned a couple of times. Thank you for your note about soft plastics. The next frontier for my customer was, let's recycle soft plastics, right? But the 200 kilos of soft plastics versus the 2 ton of concrete, we were going to have to go and create solutions that didn't exist yet, and collection methodologies that didn't exist yet to solve a problem when we had one right under our noses. So what I'm talking about today is standing back and looking at the solutions you already have that might not be as black and white for what you thought you should be focusing on. Because C&D is a large contributor to waste in Australia, it's currently about 35% of total waste in Australia. It is a really large industry. There's a lot of investment in infrastructure to ensure that material can be diverted. Cleanaway are actually established C&D as a standalone business unit in the last few years because we're really investing in partnerships between our collections and the infrastructure that our disposal partners have to ensure the circularity of these materials. So you can see here the Grasshopper truck. That's one of the businesses that Cleanaway's acquired as part of getting more wheels on the ground to execute C&D services. But in the C&I sector, we need to make sure we're collaborating between those two. This picture here is like pretty clearly describing what I mean by the differences in the services. When we have commercial services for this customer, we're setting up the processes as a bit of a set and forget. It's standardized services. These services are available in most places. I think out of the 700 stores, I've got 3 stores that I can't provide a cardboard service to. So it's quite standardized. Whereas when you're looking at skip services, it's one-off services. The services are based on the geographical area of what's available, and quite often the loads are mixed. So like I said before, when you order a skip, sometimes that just gets collected as general waste because it's a skip, rather than what is in the skip. When we have commercial and industrial services, we really define what that service is before collections occur, because we have source separation at the customer. When we talk about skip work, we really need to be more inquisitive about what is going in the bin before we allow services to occur. Anyone, well, everyone in this room who works in waste, if you've got temporary waste services, temporary skips because you're working on a project, you probably just want your skip to get serviced because sometimes the bar's that low. If you're in like a regional area, if you're on a project that's really fast moving, you just want the bin emptied. Like that is sometimes success when you're in a project, is my bin empty? Like, so we really had to lift the bar from just getting a bin service to making sure we were not only ensuring that we were capturing as much material for separation, but that we were also capturing the data behind that separation. And next up on the agenda is Simon, who's going to be talking a lot more about the data behind C&D and how much more opportunity we have to improve in this space. When you have a cardboard bin, it's very clear, consistent pathway. You have a cardboard bin that's labelled by cardboard, gets picked up by a cardboard truck, gets taken to a cardboard disposal location, and guess what? We invoice it as cardboard, and then we report it as cardboard. When you get a skip, well, it's a skip. So what's in it this week? Today we're doing flooring. It's got flooring in it. It's got concrete in it. Next week we're doing fixtures. It's got metal in the bin. So that's evolving as the project evolves. And the diversion of that skip isn't as linear. It's not binary. It's not, is this bin recycled, yes or no? It's, well, what was in it today? And did that get recycled? Did it get taken to the right facility? Did we capture the data? I guess the takeaway from this slide is C&I services can be a bit set and forget of setup is important. And what I found with the C&D was it was very touch point sensitive. Every touch point along the way we had to get right because they're temporary services. So what did we want to do? We wanted to ensure that all skip waste that we had for this customer was getting the maximum diversion possible. Sounds pretty simple, right? We're a waste company. The challenges that we faced, quite often waste is an afterthought, especially on a project. If you've done a construction project, I mean, if you've even renovated your bathroom, right? You know what I mean? You have so much going on. It's a feat of its own to execute a project. Just getting your bin serviced can be important. And then you also have to think about cost. So whenever you add additional waste services, you have to ask yourself the question, am I adding cost to this project? Then you think about who's involved. So one of the issues we had with this customer was there was decentralized execution of the project. So in this example, the customer was often subcontracting the construction work to a construction company. Then they might be requesting skip work from us. Then they're asking the landlord, is there space for that bin? The people requesting the bin were different to the people using the bin, were different to the people reporting on the bin. And because of that decentralized, what did I call it? Decentralized accountability, it was really difficult to get everyone on the same page. Process inconsistency, I'll be honest, because this was an ad hoc thing, it was not part of the BAU work for this customer, there weren't clear processes. What we found out when we brought this to the customer's attention was they had 150 stores that they were going to be refitting in the next 18 months that we didn't know about. Once we called this out as an issue, we were able to say, okay, we really need to get some processes in play to catch these things before they happen. And changing when there's inertia. So I really should call this changing when there's momentum. When we spoke to people around making this change, the bin was already getting picked up, so to them there was no problem. I just called this guy. I just asked for a skip. So making change when there's no real problem to the person that needs to make the change can be a problem. Oh. Yes. Okay, so for us, success didn't just become emptying the bin. It was ensuring as much was diverted as possible, and then we captured the data. Because not only do we need to ensure we're getting the right outcomes with the waste, which we actually were in a lot of cases, because as a disposal, we wanted to avoid landfill because it's often more expensive. So oftentimes we were diverting the material already, we just weren't capturing it. Because as a C&I service, it's very binary. It's a cardboard bin, it's a general bin. In C&D, it's a skip. Where did it go? How much of it was recycled? Because it was so binary in our reporting, we weren't actually capturing the good stuff we were already doing within a service. So what did we do? We had to focus on making data-driven decisions. This meant focusing on volume and focusing where solutions already existed. So when you focus on volume, it's talking about focusing on construction material rather than the soft plastics, right? Because that's going to make the biggest bang for buck. Focusing on solutions, again, focusing on things that we already have solutions for, rather than focusing on something like soft plastics, which is still an evolving market. We're still trying to figure out collection methodologies. And then identification for accountability. So like I said, we'd discover these tons and tons in our reports and we'd go, who did this? And half of our drama was trying to figure out who ordered the skip in the first place. We had to understand who did it so we could intervene in that process. There were refits happening, there were new stores happening, there were different brands ordering different things. Clear processes, so we had to define standards. When I say define standards, this is having like a hard conversation with your customer, day one, figuring it out before you then go and instruct other team members within their organisation. So as an example, we had to say to the customer, do you expect every contractor that you subcontract to achieve the recycling performance that you want to achieve for your company? Yes, okay. What about if it costs more? Let's have that discussion now, so then we can tell all the people that I try to share this process with that you have agreed that this is the direction we want to go in. So it's not just communicating, it's deciding and giving people authority to follow the process, even if it sometimes costs more or sometimes takes longer. Interrupting inertia is about identifying the root source of the request and interrupting it. The other part of this is making it easier. If I want to go and tell someone to do something differently with a skip that they're requesting, I need to give them so much information or so much clarity that them following my process is easier than them just doing what they've always done. So this is templates that make sure they get their bin collected at the time they want. So not only did we implement changes that helped us say, when you request this skip, say these words, and then when it gets to the depot, it'll be collected as this waste stream. We also said, hey, if you use this format, we'll make sure we collect it within the delivery windows that you want us to. So it actually helped them with what they were trying to achieve. So they wanted to follow our process because it helped them. The data challenge, and my good friend Simon here will talk about this even more as well, we really had to identify the data from the lowest common denominator. So sometimes I don't know this stuff's going on. How do I find out about it? And the two places that I can identify the service is when it's being requested and when it's being invoiced. It didn't happen unless someone asked for it, and it didn't get done unless someone's paying for it. So those were the two pain points that I jumped into to try and intervene. I went to find out, based on the data, who was requesting it, and then I spent my time with those people to understand what they needed and interrupt the request before it started. Then to find the data, which is sometimes very painful to understand where the waste went, how much of it was recycled. We started with the invoice and we worked backwards from there. So from the invoice, we could then find who requested it, what location it went to, and then work with our partners to identify how much of that was diverted. Engaging people, so we all needed to be focused on the same outcome. This is communicating the collective decision. Like I said before, getting the authority and the decision making from the decision makers and then sharing that with the business. Individualized accountability. This is kind of like, did you guys watch the show The Weakest Link? Yeah, this is, we're all a link in the chain, so everyone's responsible for their part to play. But we're not going to hold, I'm not going to hold everyone accountable. You're not going to hold everyone accountable. It's about creating a chain. So for me, I had to hold the person that provided me this data set accountable, because if they didn't do that, I couldn't do this. We got the project managers of the projects to hold their contractors accountable for requesting diversion. Then the contractors would hold the service providers accountable for giving diversion options. That was all reinforced by the contracts that were required to be fulfilled by the customer. So we created a chain of accountability where if you didn't do your part, someone noticed. And then lastly, spotlight for momentum. That's a fancy way of saying escalating nicely. So the only way to resolve bottlenecks that are not changing, if someone in the chain isn't doing their part, we try to use the carrot more than the stick. So when we're in national meetings, when we're in quarterlies, we really try to advocate for the change and just spotlight where a bottleneck is, rather than calling out anyone through escalation. Kind of the positive approach. I'll just finish on the results. So the first year we only did 6 months of that, so 120 tonnes additional we captured in diversion. For that part of the business, we increased the diversion. It was already at about 50%, but because we were getting engaged in the request, we were able to lift that from 50 to 80%. And for this customer, that actually made a 3% improvement across their total business. This one project piece of work they were doing made that impact across their whole business, more so than we would have expected the soft plastics to do. This financial year, we're looking at that being probably double, so around a 6% improvement. Takeaways are, people, it's sometimes waste is an afterthought, and we need to make it easier for people to do something rather than harder, which is something you mentioned as well. process, giving people clarity actually makes the process more sustainable, because if someone moves on, it needs to be really clear to the next person what needs to be done. And data, the devil's in the detail. Make your decisions with data and capture your data, which I'm going to pass the mic to Simon to talk about. Thanks, guys.
What you do. You must drive operations crazy, I'm sure, in your quest for information.
I used the carrot, not the stick.
Right. Not sure anybody has any questions at all for Sarah? No, thank you.
Thanks,
for that,
guys.
Sarah. She's a great presentation. So next we've got Simon Lund from Traced. He's the sustainability analyst. I'll get to Simon's bio before he comes and pushes me off the stage. So Simon's with a degree in environmental science, a master's in sustainability and a keen interest in innovating reporting practices. Simon has carved a niche in transparent waste reporting through digitalisation. Simon founded Traced in 2019 to solve a problem. Waste contractors were struggling to provide accurate and auditable waste reports on construction sites. I can see that. This required creating an efficient data management solution. Simon now helps companies transform traditional paper-based workflows into streamlined digital processing using custom low-cost software. So, Simon, AI driving efficiency in C&D waste management.
I'll give this a go and see, might mix around. So, thanks for making it to the last session. And my story, it starts with my dad. Sorry. Yeah, so my dad was born in the council estates of West Yorkshire. It was post-war England and times were tough. There wasn't a lot of money around. And yeah, they didn't get dessert. But sometimes they got a mint or a lolly. And Grandad's rules were whoever could suck on it the longest got to have a second. So as smart as my dad thought he was, he'd watch his younger brothers crunch that lolly, suck on it as long as he could. But he could never beat Grandma. And around the same time, there was ads on TV for Australia. I mean, Grandad, yeah, not just the TV, but the newspapers, the theatre, they were everywhere. So the opportunity was pretty obvious, and he bought himself and his family a £10 ticket to England. They landed in Perth, and it wasn't actually such a dream for my dad. He had that Yorkshire accent, struggled in school, and got bullied pretty badly. So he dropped out and pretty much did what any good young West Yorkshire lad would do. He started labouring. The problem was he kept labouring for the rest of his life. He never had a job he liked and really probably didn't make the most of the opportunity in Australia. So when I was in high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And my dad made that decision for me. When I was in year 12, he came into the kitchen with a stack of cash. He put it in an envelope and put it on the fridge. And he said, if you do well in school this year, you can have all that. So I studied my little ass off. And I got good enough grades for uni. I hadn't thought about what I was going to do. I was just thinking about the cash. But I had always loved nature, and I thought I'd do something to do with that. So I studied environmental science. Let me just figure this out. Yeah. Anyhow, my first job after uni was in contaminated land, and I started sampling groundwater and soil up and down Western Australia, mine sites, petrol stations. There was one site in particular that was borderline between and not. And my time The field lead at the time, she told me, oh, be careful over this groundwater well. Make sure your lip balm doesn't fall out and land in it. Thought, that's a weird thing to be worried about. But actually, the small amount of hydrocarbons and grease in that lip balm could have made the difference between tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of remediation. So, yeah, I got about fed up about worrying about my lip balm after about 5 years. And I moved over to Sweden to do a master's in sustainability. It was over there that I learned about how the cultural approach, you hear about Sweden and the social values, and they really do take a community approach to managing their waste. And I learned to separate my household waste into 6 different bin types. So when I came back to Australia, that's when I got my first job in the waste industry. I was working as an auditor for, let me try this again, for the C&D Waste companies. And we were looking at recycling reports. And it wasn't long before I started to notice some of the numbers didn't quite add up. And I remember talking to my boss at the time and asking her, what's this? It's a bit out of the ordinary to me. And she had a look and said, oh, don't worry about it. It's only plus or minus a couple of tons. That's no big deal. Well, to me it was a big deal. I'd just spent 5 years worrying about 1 drop of PFAS, which was enough to contaminate the groundwater of 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools. And here we have some people looking at waste reports and, oh, it was 2 tons of metal. Oh, no, it should have been cardboard, but whatever. Oh, actually, there was plasterboard in that, but it doesn't, nobody seemed to care. But I did care, and I still do. And that's why I started Traced, an app to help construction and demolition waste companies accurately report on their waste within plus or minus a couple of tons, let me tell you. All right, where are we up to? Yeah, so why are we talking about waste anyway? Probably a decade ago, wasn't a big deal to report on what's happening in construction. But today, Green Star is the thing. Now, I just want to see if anyone is awake in the room and ask everyone a hypothetical question. So, if you imagine I've just created the most sustainable coffee. In fact, it has 0 impact on the environment. You can have 1 million copies a day. There'll be no impact on global warming, like nothing about sea levels. This coffee is fantastic. Who here would pay an extra 5% for that coffee? What about 10%? 20%? Remember, this coffee hasn't got a single carbon emissions, is 100% guilt-free. 50% more for the coffee. Double. Awesome. Come see me later, I'm going to sell you some coffee. So the point is, sustainability isn't just a value, it's big business. As you can see here, 3 out of the 4 leading developers today have a Green Star mandate. It means every one of their developments has to be Green Star rated. The stats stack that up too. Since 2022, Green Star rated buildings have doubled every single year. And, yeah, I mean, it's just kicking off. So anyhow, Australia generates a lot of C&D waste, as you heard about in the Blue Joe's report. I've lost track of time, so I'll go a bit quicker. But anyhow, it's literally 53 Olympic-sized swimming pools filled with C&D waste every day. That's the volume we're talking about. Now, only a fraction of that is Green Star waste and has some sort of voluntary reporting requirement, but it's still hundreds of thousands of tons that need to be looked at and estimated. Also, it's growing, as you can see with the Green Star. Now, it's Trish's job to do that estimating. This is Trish. She didn't even think of being a truck driver when she was older. When she was in high school. When she was back then, she had either uni or hospitality, and she didn't like to study. So she started working late nights, weekends, missing out on birthdays. And for her, COVID was actually a blessing in disguise. She got a chance to reassess what she wanted to do with her career, and that's when she saw an ad for Cleanaway's Female Driver Academy. She signed up, she got a HR license, and now she's been in that job for 12 months, and she absolutely loves it. So this is what she does. She picks up a skip bin off a construction site, takes it over to a facility, and it gets tipped out onto the floor. It's her job then for Green Star sites to get out of the truck, walk around, and do a bit of a visual estimate. Have a quick look, see what she thinks is recyclable. That data is then fed into a recycling report, which goes back to the builder, and they can get their Green Star compliance. Now, the scientist in me, as you might guess, questioned this and thought, isn't there a better way? I mean, we're just looking at it. Well, I spoke to my mate in the industry and a few others, and it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to process one skip bin of waste. With what I proposed was, can we separate out the materials and put it in a bucket? Then we weigh it. Then we have a known weight of all the materials. Well, we talk that through, take about 5 to 8 minutes per material type. As Sarah said, there's a lot of mixed waste in these skip bins, so 5 to 6 materials is not uncommon, so we're looking at 30 to 40 minutes per skip. Now, if these businesses started spending that extra time, they'd have to charge their customers extra money, and it wouldn't be long before they'd be out of business. But yeah, so back to Trish. This doesn't point. So here she is, and but she's not the only one. You also have Tam. He's a Vietnamese immigrant. He loves his job. He's a super hard worker. And when I was down there in Victoria, he actually told me he got his son to download the app on his phone. But that job really means a lot to him. And then you also have in that facility the Danny brothers. 3 of them. They move as a pack. They've been in the industry for 15 years. They basically make collective decisions. And lastly, over in South Australia, you've got DC. Nobody knows his real name. He's a big, bikie-looking bloke, tattoos up and down, but he's the nicest guy you'll ever meet. And he's a real leader over in that facility. Anyhow, as good as all those drivers are, if you put the same waste pile in front of them, they're going to come up with a slightly different estimate. And so would I. So you can see the process is subjective, inconsistent, and hard to verify. If you look at, different drivers are going to see how things differently, and it's going to affect the data ultimately. But audits are conducted on this process once a year. The problem is they only look at the total weighbridge weight, and then they check if it matches the total weight of that report. There's nothing that actually looks into the granular detail of was it timber or cardboard or concrete. That's not checked. So it's kind of being ignored. Anyway, as you can see, I'm a little into this topic. I started on this with Cleanaway back in 2019. And back then they were working on paper estimates. It was sort of a new process coming out. So it was a pretty easy win to digitize that, and that's where I built Trace, the first app to digitize and save them time. In fact, it would save a lot of time. They had 3 different facilities, and these paper estimates were coming from left, right, and center, landing on Zoran's desk, the state manager at the time. And he had to then check the estimates and put them in and allocate them out to a job. And it was quite a painful process. Double handling was crazy. So Trace solved that problem back then. And nowadays we've just added to it, so made it easier for the drivers to use, and yeah, most recently we've implemented AI to make it more accurate and consistent for the waste estimates. So I'll give you a quick look of how it looks.
Add a new load.
Yeah.
Select your site and upload a clear photo of the docket and a photo of the waste load. Hit submit. Make sure your photos are clear and the docket is readable. Go to the Waste Estimate tab and select your load. Use AI to do your estimates more accurately and consistently. 20% building rubble, 10% cardboard, 10% gyprock, 20% metal, 15% plastic, 10% timber and 15% other. You can always change the percentages if required or use AI's estimate effortlessly.
Yeah, so how's it doing that? Well, AI is kind of like the internet. Nobody really knows how it works, it just does. No, that's not true. So anyhow, the image of the C&D Waste has different pixels, and each of those pixels has a pattern. It extracts that information and compares it to the database of expected outcomes, and that's how it generates its percentage estimate of the material. Oh, sorry. Kind of like this. So you may be curious to know, how does it perform? What we did is took 20 loads of C&D waste and we compared the driver's estimate to the AI estimate. We also took the image and did a manual color coding process to see if there was any significant variations between the two. So here's how that went. The drivers did an estimate and the AI did. And this is our mapping process. You can't see until about here, but you could see the colors changing on the image. Now, each of these methods has variability and all come with limitations. Driver estimates are highly subjective. In some cases, we've seen estimates over 70% for materials that weren't in the load. AI, on the other hand, only relies on what's visible in the image, and it often struggles to distinguish between similar materials. In fact, we have a minor issue with concrete and gyprock. It tends to overestimate concrete and slightly underestimate gyprock. So the mapping process is no better. Here you can see there's 36% timber, but the reason that is because there's a big door at the front of the image. And looking at a 2D map of a 3D substance is just going to create issues. But basically, overall, it did really well. 81% of the estimates were within 10% of what a driver would say anyways. And there wasn't a significant difference. So if it's not better or worse, why would we use it? Well, if you could just scroll down on the notes, thanks. It's not people dependent. It doesn't rely on whose shift it is or how rushed they are. It's consistent. It applies the same logic to every image every time. It's transparent. There's a clear and traceable record of what the AI saw and why it did it, and it's trainable. As you know, AI is only getting better. And because it's software, it's scalable. At a low cost, you can roll it out. So, yeah, sorry I'm running out of time. The thing is, it's the worst it's ever going to be, and it's already an A or a B+. It's not getting any worse than that. And it won't be long before we have cameras sitting on the roofs, and drivers Trish and DC will just come and tip it out and walk away. The cameras will do all that. In fact, it's not long. It's now. Companies are already doing this. All of these are working with images and assessing waste. Not just construction waste, contamination in curbside bins, FOGO, hard waste, council waste, is it a microwave? How often have we got there? And education. You can just pick up a bottle, scan it, it'll tell you which bin to put it in. So today, I'm not chasing that wad of cash on the fridge anymore. I'm chasing a world where we accurately track and responsibly manage our waste. As Bill Gates says, what isn't measured isn't managed. And if we don't measure our waste properly, how are we expected to meet all these circular economy initiatives? So if anything today has sparked interest or come up with some challenges that you might be facing in your business, feel free to come and have a chat. I'm around all the 3 days, and yeah, I'm always looking for opportunities for improvement. Finally, thanks again. I'm Simon from Trace, and I'm taking the waste industry digital, one load at a time. Thank you.
I'll get Simon to keep the microphone in case there's any questions. I did think you were going to come out and sell me an iPhone when you first started, mate, so it was all very good. Has anybody got any questions? I think that's pretty exciting technology, and as Simon said, I think it's pretty scary as well, but I think it can only improve, so I think that's pretty exciting. So have we got we've got a question here.
Are you expanding the materials that the AI can capture from the photos?
So I'll give away some IP. I actually check into what's publicly available in terms of my my algorithms. So I'm actually relying on the greater and larger visual accuracy. But essentially, yeah, you can just plug in the material types you want. I've tested it out with bins. I've actually walked around parks, taken photos inside public place bins and seen if it could identify glass bottles or whatever. So, you know, the opportunities are there, and I think over time, yes, we will start adding material types. But for the purposes of construction waste, we've got 5 or 6 clear materials that we need to estimate. And also there's an added benefit is that they're big. So it has worked really well in this case, but in you know, yeah, I think it'd be perfect for hard waste. So I've got to throw this one in there, but essentially these days I open my fridge, take a photo of what's in my veggie drawer, and tell it to give me a recipe. So it's at that level. It wouldn't, yeah, it really is. I'm mad for it. So it wouldn't be much to take a photo of your hard waste, and it would just count microwaves, all that stuff. And yeah, it is scary. I acknowledge that. I have to defend it, and of course, you know, the internet was scary at one time. What was it, the Y2K? You know, space travel. There's a whole bunch of things that have caused problems for society, and AI will as well. There will be casualties. We know that Silicon Valley moves fast and breaks things, and yeah, we're just on that journey, I guess.
It's very good. Oh, another question in the corner there.
Just in terms of moving fast, do you think there's a future of it to be able to take videos at, say, mobile for stuff, you know, moving through?
Yeah, if we go back here, so Grey Parrot are probably the global leaders in that. They're working mostly over in Europe, but they have just got cameras in MRFs, and they're really, and I think Recycle Eye as well are in England. But essentially, yeah, that's what they're up to. Mm.
Simon, what about putting FOGO into the back of a collection truck and the camera's picking up the contamination as the FOGO goes into the truck? Bit too quick, bit too much material, or will that come in time?
Look, that's probably what clean bins are doing. They are working with cameras on the pickup trucks, so I probably would default to them. I would say, of course, I would say if not now, then in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, clean bins will have a really good idea of that. And my concern with FOGO is the contamination is going to be hard to pick up in an image, but I'm absolutely keen to test it out if someone has some projects they want to look into.
Okay, excellent.
Awesome.
Thank you. So everybody, thanks Simon. That was very informative and good fun. Thank you. That ends the session. Connie gave me a bit of a heads up. She said anybody who's parked out on the grass, it might be prudent to leave your car here tonight. Apparently there's been 4 cars bogged so far. That was about an hour ago, so maybe there might be 6 or 7 now, but she said it might be prudent to leave your cars because you can use the shuttling of the buses, and I think also Opal Cove probably don't like their lawn getting torn up as well. So just a heads up, I'm not sure how many people have actually parked on the lawn, but just give you a heads up that it might be an idea to stop. So apart from that, thank all our presenters today and thank you all for your attention. Yeah.